and welcome to another episode of Dark Days Radio, your home for, well, horror RPGs. Normally we're talking about things like World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness, but as you know, we like to cover lots of different things from the horror RPG genre. And as you know, we cover a lot of Warhammer content on our Darkhammer specific episodes. But for this episode in particular, we are looking at Owlcat Games and their soon-to-be released computer RPG, which is called Rogue Trader. So that means it's a game based on the Warhammer 40,000 IP and looks at playing, a rogue trader out on their starship, exploring the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and along with them, of course, is an entourage of various characters from across the Warhammer 40,000 universe. I'm one of your regular hosts, Chris, and I am joined by Anatoly from Owlcat Games, who is here to basically give some insight in how he, what work he performs on the game and what we can expect from the computer game and what interesting elements there are to it. So, hi, Anatoly, how are you doing?
Hi. It's all good. Thanks for having me here.
That's great. So, before we get into the real meat of the discussion, so what's your main role at Owlcat Games and your involvement with Rogue Trader?
I'm executive producer of Rogue Trader project, so I'm basically the guy in charge of the game, meeting its schedule and budget and audience reception.
Yeah. So yeah, I understand managing projects from my day job and software engineering side of things. Yeah, managing cats and meeting stakeholder expectations and all those things. Though it's a very different world to when you're dealing with with an IP as well, when it's someone else's IP. Great, and so I will also again disclose to everyone listening to this. Yes, everyone who listens to Dark Days Radio will be aware that obviously I also freelance write for Cubicle 7 on their Warhammer RPGs. A lot of stuff recently with the Wrath and Glory RPG, which is a Warhammer 40,000 RPG. So, you're going to get people listening to this is going to get a real lots of Warhammer 40,000 insight and discussion. As I said, Rogue Trader then is a computer RPG. Do you want to give us the kind of elevator pitch of it and kind of what part of the Warhammer 40,000 universe we'll be exploring?
Sure. We're gonna explore the Coronas Expanse. This one of the farthest frontiers of the Imperium. We're gonna play as a rogue trader in it, and as an audience, you can expect as much tabletop RPG experience in a video game format as possible, because that's what we do in Owlcat. We try to go deep in immersion, and there is no thing more immersive than tabletop RPGs, as far as I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the Coronas Expanse, because that's the last time we've had that region of the Imperium featured in any product was with the previous 40k RPG, which was Rogue Trader. So that came out from it was originally Fantasy Flight developed to, yeah, and so it's really interesting to come back to that. And then as I said, so it's with computer RPG, kind of what kind of, because there's so many different styles that can be taken with how you approach, let's just say, like with combat. And I think from the videos, it's a grid based system, is it? And then it's not a hex grid; it's a square grid.
Yeah, it's
for movement.
System,
yeah,
kind of keen of the XCOM.
Definitely. That was what I was going to compare it to. So it looked kind of like reminiscent of XCOM movement and so forth. And then other things I've seen with some of the preview videos is that you can get involved in quite a lot of different plot lines, and so there's a good mixture then of what I would call the combat side of RPG, and then there's the more narrative, investigative social dynamics element of RPG where you're dealing with various aspects of the imperial society.
You can put it in that way, sure, but I prefer a bit different angle from the dynamics point of view, like the things you can do with the game. We provide four different elements. First one is an exploration activity where your party is like running with legs. In not combat situation, avoiding traps, solving puzzles, looking for clues, uh, finding some interesting characters to speak with, stuff like this. Second activity is a battle activity, like fair and square, turn-based combat where there is your party of characters and all the world against you. The thing that Warhammer throws around basically is um, combat engagement in a different scale, where you can where you can check your successes on itemization or your prowess in a like tactics and stuff like that. Third part of the like general activity of the game is space activities, where you're playing as a rogue trader. You have your own void ship, the massive flying vessel in a space with thousands of people under your command, with your retinue of high officers who are basically your party. And we allow three kind of activities there. We've got like whole global map of Coronis expands with every system, and you chart your courses with your navigator through different systems. You decide where to go, how to reduce the amount of danger that war probes provide to you. Other part is system activity when you're like entering the reality or entering the materium after the warp jump. You find yourself in some system that circling around some star, and there are some interesting things there, like planets that you can search for different resources or quest elements or story elements. There are anomalies in space. There are narrative episodes in space. And the last part of the like purely space activities are space battles. There are like actual void ships that are fighting using its own system, using their own mechanics. You've got your void ship upgradable with its own perks, with its own equipment. So yeah, that's what player do in a space. And the fourth part, the of overall dynamics of the game, the most important part of the every game that Owlcat are doing is a narrative one. The story that circles around you, that you pushing in some way and receiving the reactivity on your actions in a like more intimate way with like specific characters, even your own retinue, or with like general factions, and in a higher scale of things with like planets or systems. So that's what we provide from the dynamics point of view to the any player who decides to play the rogue trader video game.
Wow, that's a lot of things to explore. Like that means, I mean, for me and long-term fans, like, you've got a slice which is, if you've ever touched anything to do with Battlefleet Gothic, you've kind of got that aspect. I like the idea that you can jump around to different worlds, and that the plot you're going to be following, is, or whatever plots you follow, are spread over these systems. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting aspects from the role play aspect, as playing as a rogue trader, is the fact that rogue traders carry a lot of clout in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. You can. I mean, you might annoy us certain people, certain planetary or subsector governors, but you could annihilate a city or a planet. It'll be interesting to see how that power dynamic of being a rogue trader is expressed in the game, because they are a rogue trader can
Let me give
shape
you
a
just a
lot.
quick example of this. For example, there is a footfall station, like one of the canonic elements of the Coronis Expanse. The kind of Tartuga style void station which you can visit, and there is a there is a custom inside the footfall that whichever rogue trader is inside the station, this rogue trader is ruling the station.
Oh, right.
And so when you're visiting the like vassal of footfall, the guy who is in charge of day-to-day operations of such a station, one of the things that you can demand from him is like anything you want. Like you can
Excellent.
there is some like urgent, I don't want to spoil the story
Yeah.
itself, but there are some urgent situations and he needs your help to deal with them in a some way. And one of the things, and we actually do it, one of the things that we allow the player to express himself both as a role and as a rogue trader, as a class, we allow him to say for the vassal, on your knees and ask me nicely. And it actually incites the role. Or one other example is this. There are some pretty powerful enemies that will be fighting against you basically in the game. And on one of the encounters with them, they are all nice and shiny, and we're gonna kill you. And there are like different ways to address them, and one of my favorite ones is to address your own seneschal, second in command from your ship, who is most of the time with you if you decide to bring him as one of companion, to address him with the words, "My dear seneschal, present me," and he will speak like 10 titles of you, full name of you, with a conclusion as a fall on your knees, fools, because here is Almighty. Like this level of absurdly pathos elements that circles around the rogue trader, who isn't just as mighty as any like void ship captain. Like he's not just having its own ship. He has its own trade empire with the planets who mostly bring him the profit. He has the pattern that allows him to travel wherever he wants, and allows him to bring whichever companions he wants. So we've got, for example, Eldari companion, Drukari companion, Tech Priest companion. We've got Cold Trader companion. There are lots of different facets of the Warhammer that we decided to merge together to allow players to immerse in the Warhammer as deep as possible. So yeah, there are like tremendous scale of a power that player can potentially express. For example, on one of the hard choices that will be presented to the player, one of the options will be, "Oh, to hell, just destroy this planet." And this is the option. Like, it's not the end of the game. It's one of the like solid options to go. That's how we approach the power level of the rogue trader, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really cool, because that's that kind of exploration of that pomp and grandeur is something which is something which is interesting when we've been trying to express in the tabletop game as well. Like when you play these, you're not just a guardsman, you're not even just a commissar, you're something so high up the ranks. Like you do have all these titles, and it's just have that as that ability, like to have your seneschal, and it's not just something in text, it's actually got some mechanic or impact on the game is really great to hear. So I think the interesting, then the next thing to ask is, like, you mentioned antagonists, and I know people who are familiar with the Coronis Expanse will know that the Drukhari are lurking around a lot. So kind of how broad how broad are the kind of I say broad themes of the antagonists are we going to see? I mean, are we going to see, because people might say, are we going to get is it going to be lots of demons? Are we going to get Eldari? Kind of what can you say about what antagonists we're going to face in the game?
Without spoiling like any crucial details, the whole plot of the story circles around Inquisition on one side, Xenos on the other side, and it's not just Drukhari. And you on a third side, and some ruinous powers on a fourth side. And some of them will be your enemies, some of them will be your allies. Their standing will be changing through the game plot to you, and it's you as a player who will decide the standing of the factions. Like there will be some initial one, but you will have a lot of opportunity to switch the standings.
And how blurred can some of those antagonisms be? Because I mean, is it just straight? Oh, Drukhari are all just evil space, evil Eldari, as we know. But road traders can, with a certain amount of freedom, can toy with those borders between who's meant to be an enemy and who isn't. So is that something which is there to be played with?
Yeah, of course. As I already said, you as a player will have an option to bring to your ship and to have as your retinue Eldari companion and Drukhari companion.
Oh, and
the
Drukhari
Spaceful
right.
companion and
Excellent.
Unsanctioned Psyker companion and Interrogator There are lots of different elements that can be brought to your world because you are all this almighty. And what important is we try to express not the very obvious faces of the Warhammer. For example, we not just giving you some battles with Drukhari. They have their agenda. They do things which they do because of some reasons. And if you want, you can discover them. You can mess with them, or you can even provide some assistance to them. And we actually putting the player inside the Kamarak. We're actually making the first ever visual depiction of the Kamarak. And there will be not just battles. We are trying to placate some elements of such a tremendous monstrosity that Kamarak is. Of course, it's not all nice and shiny place with rainbows. No, there is a horrible place, but in every horrible place there are different elements that you can interact with in a different way to role play your style, to express your agenda as a rogue trader. And what else can I say about the fictions? Any companion that will be joining your side have their own agenda. You can imagine that Inquisition's interrogator not just joining your side because you are all funny and beautiful. No, he has his own deeds that need to be done. And Eldari character will have its own deeds. How will you interact with them? Will you mess with this, or will you help them, or will you forget about them, or will you kill them, for example? There are all the solid options that the player can express himself with, but it's up to the player to be whichever rogue trader he wants to be. For example, we've got this system, conviction system, which allows a player to build upon significant decisions that he's making on shaping the world around him. And one of the convictions is Imperialis one, the canonical one, you are all Aquila, all for the Imperium, you are all the Persic heretics guy, and it's all understandable. But the other one, for example, is a benevolencia. You're thinking about people.
Yeah.
Why can't I give them trust? Why can't I give them a chance? Why can't I try to make their suffering a bit lower in the Warhammer? And of course, you're receiving a lot of consequences based on whichever conviction you are aiming to, whichever like conviction is happening to building upon you, and it not just like numbers in your chart sheet. No, it's it changing the way your void sheet looks. It changing the way some other massive elements in a space looking, and of course it brings you some mechanical benefits.
And that's awesome, and that's I mean that's one of the things. Like, it feels, I think people who are also say fans of Blackstone Fortress, because of course that's, again, you've got that entourage, that mixed entourage, to have that feel transplanted into a more developed RPG kind of experience is really great. And also the idea that your ship evolves with respect to those alliances and decisions and how you play is just, yeah, it's just great to know that it's not just, oh, it's just giving me a bonus to the type of weapons I have, or the amount of damage, or just whether I go down this plot. It's a much more immersive in that way. And it's interesting because you said that you can have space marines as members of your entourage. So the classic problem, I say the problem of space marines, and this is me speaking about space marines in the tabletop RPG experience, is they are powerful, right? They are like, on the tabletop war game. We've got to make the war game fun and have more than just 5 space marines on a battlefield, because 5 space marines could devastate 100, could devastate 1,000 enemies. And in the RPG, in the tabletop RPG, again, we try and massage that balance, so it's like you get the grandeur of a space marine without it being like, well, the rest of those characters are pointless in the party. So how have you tackled that balance between what is fun to play and what we call the cinematic space marine, who is just an army unto themselves?
Let me start with like one of our inspirational sources, Fantasy Flight Games tabletop material. For example, their rogue traders have their like starting numbers way above like regular, because they
Yeah.
are like uh, significant, unique persons, like best of the best. They are like way above. Of course, starting like even starting rogue trader party can't compete with a space marine, because if you look at a Death Watch as like one of the canonic elements, or a Black Crusade or the other side, they are like way stronger. That's why we insert the option to invite this one chosen space wolf character to your party relatively late to the game, on a second half of the game. You've got such an option where your all other party members are kind of geared up, kind of leveled up by the point they are like not so obvious. But of course, none of the characters in this universe can charge on the enemy and crush their skulls better than a space wolf. So if that's your preferred play style, he will be like 100% choice without any question. But for example, if you're playing as a heavy gunner team, or if you're playing as a heavy psychers team, or if you're playing as a all these dodgy million of attacks per round, million action points party, there will be some like not so obvious choices for you to make. So that's one facet of the situation, and the other one, we it may sound harsh, but in Owlcats, we mo- most important thing for us is immersion. So when we're like coming up with a story, with interesting choices, with interesting consequences of such choices, we tend to think about the balance of the things on a later stages, or not at all, because what we provide is a genuine role-playing experience, not the war game per se. Yes, there are battles. Yes, there are these battles are important element of the game, and they allow you to express yourself in a ways of killing enemies, brawling through some obstacles. But that's just one of the elements of you expressing yourself. We're not we never try to make perfectly balanced system for the tournaments. It's not the games we are
Yeah.
making. We most of the other side of the spectrum, kind of
Yeah.
like this.
And I guess if you take if you've got the Space Marine character as part of your entourage, it makes, I'm sure, with some of the narrative branching, it's just like that's just not an option. Like you can't just walk into certain places with a 8 foot tall, 9 foot tall killing machine with you, because everyone's just like, that's a Marine. They're not. You can't be subtle.
No, we try at every time we are making any aspect of the game, we are genuinely trying not to limit the player. So it's not like there are places where you can't go with a Space Marine, or places where like you're losing some quality content because you pick up Space Marine. No, we're inserting Space Marine
Okay, yeah.
in a precise moment where he will be 100% relevant in any place you can
Right.
give him.
That's cool. Okay. That makes
Kind of
sense. Yeah.
that's our ideology in a working with the content. Of course, there
Yeah.
will be places where we miscalculated something, or there will be, I guess, some bugs. But general approach
Yeah.
circles around making every choice the player makes viable and every choice interesting. That's
Yeah.
what we in a like in a higher scheme of things try to do.
And then I guess I think you've kind of addressed this as well, because I say with the rogue trader, and the entourage, you like I said, you go to the spaceport and you demand almost like a tithe or loyalty or whatever. You can make certain demands. So I think that kind of, to me, that means it shows that you've thought, you've made the thought of how you express what being a road trader is. Because going back to certain CRPGs, which annoyed the heck out of me, is where they go, you're this type of character, you're like effectively space police or whatever, but you can't use that rank to do anything. You go, well, why do I have to barter with this criminal? I should be able to just go, you're under arrest, give me your stuff. Not, I'm going to go get something for you to get the information back out of you. It's, to me, those things destroy what the narrative is. So it makes me very happy that you can play as what a road trader does, which is negotiates with planetary governors, but other people, you're in charge. You're the big shot. So I think you've definitely answered one of the later questions I had there, because it's just such a struggle with that. So the other thing is, what else was I going to say? The other thing is, so 40K is an interesting kind of IP, because it has, we have to and this happens a lot with writing for the tabletop RPG as well. It's like you have to acknowledge that as a setting, it is brutal and horrific, and the Imperium is a barbaric government to be within. But there are always those kind of aspects of moments of heroism, and characters are not just brutal commissars who just demand authority. You have those moments of sympathizing with them. So is that again something that was important when developing the members of the entourage who join your party, that you are not just being the worst excesses of those groups, that you do get to see a whole gamut of what society is like?
Of course, and it comes not just to the entourage members. It comes to basically any character that you will encounter, because what we aim to is to express Warhammer 40K as fully as possible, and to allow you as a player to touch different things of this part. So, for example, there will be there will be an encounter with a soldier who abandoned his order. And if you want, and only if that's what you want, you will know the reasons behind these abandoning, and you will decide how to proceed. But of course, the first available action is to shot on sight such a traitor, because
Yeah.
this is an Imperium. But if that's what you as a player wants, you can dive deep in a situation. You can, if you want, you can trade with pirates. If you want, you can touch uh, uh, some dark artifacts and do different things with them. If you want, you can, for example, there is a station of Navis Nobility, the navigators one, and when you will be encountering such a station, your Vox Master will advise you how to proceed. But it's up to you to say, fuck this shit. I am here rolling.
Yeah.
And where you will be encountering like delegation of Navis Nobility. One of the
Yeah.
options that you can express is to cut this shit, just give me the new shiny navigator. Like, who the hell is doing like this in Warhammer? No,
Yeah.
it's not canonical approach to the interactions between the fractions, but the whole rogue trader approach allows us to let the player express him in a most severe way possible, in a most strange ways, like caring about people, like loving some characters.
How
We
radical.
allow that too, but uh, in the same time, we allow purge and clean on-site approach, and even mix them when the player feels like to do it. So yeah, the Warhammer as itself is a horrific irony on a lots of the bad things that happened with humanity through our history. But these intersections uh, of this horror allows to tell different stories, like unique ones. And that's one of the reasons because we genuinely love the Warhammer as a setting. It's not like we were searching through marketing prospects. No, we were playing Warhammer for like 5 years before actually making it. Uh, guys were playing. Guys finished full-scale Rogue Trader campaign that transformed in a Black Crusade campaign because they were corrupted as hell, and they were playing like 3 years with such a campaign. Just one of the party. Other some of our guys, like level design guys, play like I don't know if it's a proper term, but they're play sport hammer. They are
Okay.
actually going to tournaments. They
Yeah. Yeah.
are
Yeah.
know all the numbers on all the patches of all the armies. They've got like bazillion of miniatures. They are
Yeah.
like living with it. And we all came out on a Rogue Trader project because of our love to the initial source elements. And we know there are cool things there that we try to express, but of course, none of us ever try to glorify any elements of
Yeah.
such a setting, because it's most and foremost, it's irony. It's
Yes.
hard and dark irony, and
Yeah.
to to think about it, to express it in different ways, to maybe laugh on some elements or think about others, is what makes this material great, not the almighty emperor die for
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
No.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that's the thing. It's always, again, like from my writing experience, it's like how to is to, like, say, get that irony. And yeah, if you could push a bit of satire into it, then great, because it just adds a bit of levity when the content can get quite foreboding and dark for the player. So if there's a moments of dark humor that organically emerges, then that's always great. So another thing I was going to ask then is, because we've basically been saying there's loads of different ways of exploring the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Different media explores it in different ways. So, how did you come upon the kind of art style for Rogue Trader? Because because I've also been playing some Darktide, and that's a very different different experience as well. Like, you're in the hives as a guardsman. It's horrific. How did you how did you come upon that art style? And I guess then also, with relation to that, then, in exploring both the style of game you wanted to present and the art style, did that bring up interesting questions that you had to go back to Games Workshop with about, like, well, how does this actually work? You've never said this in any book. Like, where does a person go to do XYZ? Because it's so it has no meaning to the war game, but yet when you're living in that world, it has meaning.
Yeah, of course. But to answer the question, let me say at first that I'm not an artist myself.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
I can say some like stupid to any artist things, guys. Sorry, but we in a Owlcat, we're really proud in our hand painting approach to surrounding. So we don't just use like PBR or procedural generated textures, or we don't do things that forbids us from unique touch on any detail element. For example, we've got these squares on a tiles on the floor on the floor of the station, and we've got scratches on this tile. We've got like lots of variations of such scratches and lots of variations of such tiles, but any one of them were made by the hand of the artist, by the eye of the artist, and by the heart of the artist, with in mind general thought of there were thousands of combat encounters here. What touch did it left here? Stuff like this. So we combined our studio approach to the hand painting focus with immersion with decisions that in our experience allows the player to immerse easily. So that the isometric view with a free camera that you can zoom in, zoom out, and you can rotate with realistic proportions and with a hand painted textures is, in our experience, one of the main things that you will imagine when you're closing your eyes. It's hard to imagine Warhammer elements or any other sci-fi or fantasy elements in a first view, like fully scale that you can touch, because you don't know it. It's all the fantasy for you. But with a bit far away camera, with a bit of a composition, with a designed color schemes and points of interest, you will grasp significant elements, and you will dive in all other elements if you want. You will navigate the space freely, and you will differentiate the level of importance of the elements on the screen. That's basically the main ideology behind the art style that we've picked. Other ones are technical limitations. There are there are counted number of elements that can be put in a frame in any given second. There are like counted maximum size of the area that can be implemented because of the specifications of the target machine. So most of the time it's immersion, our preferences, and technical limitations. And about the things that you've asked, interesting thing about arts that came from Warhammer but need to be adjusted. we strongly reference on like miniatures, but miniatures have not so very realistic proportions because they are miniatures.
Yeah.
So lots of the time we were in a situation where we need to adjust for like per sake of proportion some elements, and from other situations we were under the situations of okay, Herbites has his own like set of equipment, but if we encounter him in a bath, what will be on his like underwear?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
for example, when there is a like there is the imperium of mankind, but it's mostly humanity, and humanity, for example, drinks. What sounds will be sounding from the bar that you
Yeah.
are entering in a like some station? What
Yeah.
are
I
music elements, like
I
stuff
think
like
that's
this?
only been described like I think I've heard descriptions of what the music is like maybe in I know I've read it in one of the Eisenhorn books, but I can't remember any other specific references to what the music of in these CD bars are, because anywhere else you would imagine like, well, there'll be hymns or various servitors and voxcasters putting out various hymns, but when it's like you say underground bars, like what is I don't know. It's like I think it's called. What's the reference? I think in the Iceborne book they call it like it's like, almost like thrum music or thud music or something stupid like that. That's Dan Abnett for you, isn't it? Coming up with interesting terms and things for the world when he's been writing. And I think I guess then as we start to wrap up, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, because I think we've covered quite a lot of different aspects of what the game is like and how it's been developed. And of course, computer RPGs are obviously they're a genre, and there's different styles of how to create one, whether you use grids, whether you use hexes, whether you use freeform movement, and then obviously there's all the other kind of mechanics in there as well. So is what kind of aspects in Rogue Trader do you feel like you feel push or at least excel in Rogue Trader from the traditional kind of like from other examples of computer RPGs? You go like that mechanic in this context now really works and drives home what Warhammer 40,000 is, or because it's Warhammer 40,000 we can actually do this for once when we've not been able to do it before, we've not seen that before.
Mm-hmm. Uh, let me
It's a
let me
bit of a
tell you
highbrow
this.
question, I know
Yeah,
that.
that's not an easy one, but yeah. For in our expression, in our experience, Warhammer is dark and gritty, but evolves around the power fantasy of like heroic elements of some individual who makes wonders in this particular moment. So one of the elements that we've decided to implement to elaborate of this feeling is physical projectiles. So in a like in a general term, it's like understandable thing. But what we've done with this, anytime you use firearms, you've got two options. First one is to make single shot, and second one is to make the burst shot.
Yeah.
Whenever you make burst shot, there are bullets actually flying in a conus, big one, and damaging whenever they encounter. So if you want to deal massive amount of damage, you are using this burst fire, but you are damaging all of the people around you. They are popping with blood. They are like severed limbs, stuff like that. When you're using single shot, it's a game. You need to control the surrounding. You need to predict the outcome of your actions. You can pinpoint any target inside the attack range, and the shot will flew there
Yeah.
without any obstacles. But after it strikes the target, it has a chance to over penetrate and to fly further and to strike several
Cool.
targets. And whenever the bullet strikes target, it has a chance to push it. For example, when you're shooting with a heavy bolter, there are like people dying all of your side, but there are some of them that will be brutally pushed 10 squares away on a wall and falling through the cliff, stuff like that. And the last part of such a mechanic, because everything is a physical, to dodge anything, your character actually stepping outside. So, for example, you are like crunching under the cover, and their enemies like shooting at you, and they are throwing the grenade, and your character will go away from the cover to dodge this grenade if you have such an option, and will be leaving his cover and will be standing all inside the empty ground with the enemy forces. So these elements of dark, gritty, procedural narrative battle elements of Warhammer, I've got an impression that we like make really good of it, and I'm proud of how it's playing at the moment.
That's great. I mean, it's interesting you describe that, because obviously the other thing that going on in my life like is Warhammer all the time. Actually, it's ridiculous, because if I'm not writing something for it, then in my free time I'm playing. I'm running a Necromunda campaign, and of course, what you've described is often some of the things we have to worry about when you're getting shot. Is, oh no, they've not just been shot; they've been shot and pushed back, and they're falling off a platform, or if you're using a harpoon weapon, it's gone through someone and someone else, or they're being rammed by a vehicle. I've just been building a custom vehicle for my Goliath gang, so it's really cool to hear like how you've been about how firearms and explosives and so forth are going to interact, and how the characters will move in response to that. So I think just to wrap up, because I think we've covered a lot of different things, and I think off the back of this, I will advise listeners to obviously go seek out the YouTube videos. They can see a lot of this in action. Obviously, I'm sure those videos, there's even more still to come, because things are still, there's development and tweaks obviously that will go on before release. But right now, with the release of also another CRPG that's out in the world, do you feel like it's kind of like there's a resurgence going on in the genre, or is it just or is it just the right time? Has or is it something to do with like the I don't know whether it's the technology, or is it just back in vogue? Like, we've had all the first person shooters, we've had a lot of that stuff, we've had a lot of all the fighting games. It's just like CRPGs, it's just that's back.
I don't know if we can speak about resurgence, because in Owlcats we never felt that RPGs are in a state of decline. We are like huge fans of such a genre, and we play through every game that comes up in this genre. And there were like absolutely brilliant Wasteland or Salast, for example, just things that pops up in my mind. The recent success of Baldur's Gate is a huge deal for all the industry, and especially for the RPG genre, because it opens the door to different, crunchy, really hardcore and long play style to new people. Because of new people, because of broadening the borders, there will be new discussions, new approaches. There will be more interest from major studios to classical RPGs as a genre. So it's not like we're in resurgence. It's like we're in a potential of new dawn, and let's see how it will be going out from here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the completely, to be completely selfish, I mean, the fact that there is a 40k RPG, computer RPG coming out, it's going to be there out in the wild, is great, because those computer games are brilliant inspiration for the tabletop. So, and likewise for the tabletop, for when you can't get your group to gather around and roll dice, there's the computer RPG, and I think that kind of symbiosis of the mediums is great. And the fact that then you go, I really I like how the Space Marine is in Rogue Trader. I want to play more of that. Then obviously there's a Space Marine computer game coming out as well. So it's really there's so much 40k and Warhammer content in different formats. It is really exciting when especially if you just get burnout from painting toy soldiers, which does happen. So I'm really excited to play Rogue Trader then, because again, like I said, I've been playing Dark Tide and it's great. Playing a guardsman with a bolt gun is fun, but it's going to be cool to have someone with a bit more grandeur, a bit more oomph, has his own spaceship. That's all good stuff. Right. So to finally wrap up, were there any last comments, points you wanted to highlight, or things that people should be looking out for in the next few weeks and months?
One thing that I wanted to address is my genuine recommendation to the audience to try Wrath and Glory. You got pretty decent, really good designed in a design way system of designing your patron. Is one of the elements that we played, several models of it, and we as a developers highly recommend to at least give it a try, because it's not just Warhammer. It's, aside from Warhammer, a genuinely nicely designed tabletop RPG experience. And aside from this, keep nice, keep safe, guys. It's not so easy times. And I wish you all good luck and good day.
So yeah, we'll have in the show notes, obviously links to Owlcat Games. We'll put in also links to the YouTube, social media. And is there? I can't remember now. Is there a release date on the horizon, or is it not yet set in stone?
We actually released. We actually announced our release date. It will be the 7th of December this year. It will be simultaneously released on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. There will be Mac version inside. There will be cooperative mode inside.
Oh, wow.
But without crossplay, so it's just
sure
PCs with PCs, stuff.
Yeah,
like this.
That's really cool.
Yeah, stuff like this.
That's very cool. The idea of collaborative play, that's a whole topic. That's another whole topic, but I don't want to push you any more time on that. But that's really cool to know that's an available play style. Brilliant. Well, again, Anatoly, thanks for coming on and spending an hour chatting 40k with me. And for everyone listening, obviously, if you've got any comments, go over to the Discord. You can find us at Dark Days Radio on social media. If you want to email us, darkdaysradio@gmail.com. And of course, if you want to get some more Warhammer content, you want to learn more about the setting, you can go over to our Darkhammer episodes, because we are finally going to soon finish our Chaos Gods series and talk about minor Chaos Gods. I say minor, people like Be'lakor and so forth. But yeah, you can find more content there. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you again to my guest Anatoly for speaking, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
This has been an episode of Darker Days Radio. Special thanks to Occam's Laser for the intro, outro, and new bumper music from their hit album, 9 Circles. Check out the rest of their work at occamslaser.bandcamp.com.